Again, my name is Nate Beckman. Thanks for coming. We're almost to lunch, so we can do this. If you're not familiar too much with Safelite, you may know us by such hits as Safelite Repair, Safelite Replace. So used to travel a lot. Thank you. And if I talk to somebody in the airplane, that's the first thing out of their mouth every time. So we have, last year we served 5 million customers, and we have 5,000 mobile techs that are always on the road. And so field service life is what we live and breathe. And my team supports the mobile application that our technicians use day in, day out. They use it to status their jobs. They use it to collect payment. And a couple of years ago, when we were assessing kind of the customer touch points that our folks go through, we thought we really needed to include text. And at this point now, in the project called On My Way Text, we are using messaging to connect more personally with customers than ever before. But before we get too much into that, I'm going to talk about something else I really like to talk about, me. We're going to say, through this talk, we're going to talk a little bit about how texting is more personalized. Like, that's kind of a key word. But recently, I had an experience that was pretty personal. So I'm adopted, and this is really me. That's kind of the look. I found my biological mother online, and she happens to be a real estate agent, and I had two ways I could contact her. I could call her, or I could text her. And pretty quickly, I came to text as the way that I was going to reach out for the very first time ever. And I did this for a couple reasons. First of all, the poor woman's 64 years old, and she's going to have a heart attack no matter what I do. But if I called her, she may or may not answer that call. If she did, who knows what kinds of company she would be in. It might be really bad and awkward for her to have that conversation. I don't know what kind of communication she's had with the rest of her family about this event. So that was one thought. The other is, if I go to voicemail, I'm going to leave a rambling message. I had no ability to control the message and what was going to come out of my mouth. So for those reasons, and also for just the immediacy of text, I decided, yeah, you know what? Text is probably the way to go with this. And when I say this, because text is a lot more personal than just sending words back and forth. Text as a word and text messaging is kind of a misnomer at this point anyway, because we use video and voice and emojis, and we have the context of knowing if the person on the other end is reading it and if they're typing back. It's very flexible and interactive. And these are the things that Safelite wanted to get to when we wanted to look at text as something we could include in contacting customers. So we've been around for like 70 years. We know a lot about our customers and how they interact with our technicians. And we know that they really care about three things. They want us to be nice, they want us to be on time, and they want us to be good. Good meaning do the work well the first time. So, with this, being nice, you can kind of hire to that. We can look at the profiles. Being good, we definitely have extensive training, certification, top of the line, world-class tools and technology that we can apply to this. But being on time is just tough, Like, we didn't have a support mechanism or support tools for our technicians. And if you think about it, our technicians need to be on time like 6 to 10 times a day. It stresses me out if I have to drive across town and meet up with someone that I don't know about. And this is like first date level stress. Because if they're late, it could be 5 minutes late, that person might really be upset with them. It could really torpedo the relationship kind of from the get-go. So we dug into that and we said, all right, well, what does on time mean exactly? Contacted customers, kind of brought in a focus group and said, what should we try to achieve? And 90% of the people that we talked to said they wanted a phone or a text 30 to 60 minutes ahead of time. And that was great. That made it easy to say, OK, well, this is a clear goal that we can go and try to hit. And if you look at this customer kind of timeline in terms of how we interact with customers, you can see how we have a lot of defined things, and these are still true. We have a lot of defined things ahead of time, but at the end of the line, there really wasn't anything that existed that was structured. So if you start off, let's say Monday, you go on Safelite.com, you book an appointment. You'll immediately get an email. All right? Let's say you booked it for Wednesday. Whatever the day that before the appointment is, you'll get a little reminder that just says, hey, remember us, Safelite? We're coming out tomorrow. Just want to make sure you are prepared. On the day of the appointment, you'll get what's called a tech profile email. So you get a picture of the technician, you get their name. That's pretty popular, as you can expect. It tells the customer who to expect, and it was something that really we started in like 2008, 2009, and has been consistently in surveys, in terms of things that folks really appreciate about our process. Tech call ahead is something that is done kind of more as a standard operating procedure where like an hour, hour and a half after you get your tech profile email, the technician who kind of owns your work will call you and say, hey, my name's Jim, I'm on the way, or I'm sorry, you're on my route today, and they may try to narrow the window down to something like 2 to 3 hours instead of 4 to 5 hours. But ultimately, you're still stuck with multiple hours of a window, and we knew that customers, really didn't appreciate that. So On My Way text came in, and we said, let's try to do this with a 30-minute window. So that is kind of at the heart of what we can provide to customers with the program, because we're giving them that time back. I mean, probably most of us have been in this situation where you're stuck at home waiting for some sort of service personnel to show up. And a 4 to 5 hour window or a 2 to 3 hour window, that's still like a giant swath of your morning or your afternoon. If I know, we still do those. We still have a 4 to 5 hour window in scheduling and a 2 to 3 hour in the call ahead. But if I know that 30 to 60 minutes beforehand, I'm going to get a text, that frees me up. That frees up my morning. I can go to the gym. I can go to the grocery store. I can run errands. I can do whatever. Because I just know I need to be reasonably close to where we're going to get this work done. So I'm going to show you a couple screens. This is the mobile application that our technicians use. And this is the view of it in October of 2013 when we piloted the program. We started in 3 cities. We just turned on 15% of the customers. We didn't go all in at that point. And you can see in the bottom here, you've got acknowledge, call ahead, in transit, and arrived. These are steps. These are milestones that technicians knock off as they complete steps before arriving on site. Okay, well, clearly acknowledge and call ahead happens way before your job is going to happen. But in transit seemed to fit like something that would work pretty well. Once the tech is on the way, you hit this, and now we'll give them a prompt. So we added a new screen, in transit details. So here we're saying, okay, as easy as we can for the tech, let's just give them a few options in terms of the travel time. They'll tell us how long it's going to be, and we'll calculate an ETA range, and the customer will see that. That's what is sent to the customer in a text message. Okay? So we rolled that out, and I'll show you what the text that the customer receives is in a sec here. But we learned a lot. So about every 2 months, we do updates to this program. And some of the major things that we pointed out here, first of all, the techs kind of forgot to hit it. So it wasn't part of their normal operating procedure before. It wasn't required. And they also didn't know which customers had opted in and which hadn't. And that's an important point. I should have pointed that out earlier. customers have to opt in for this feature. We can't just go texting folks willy-nilly based on legalities and just making sure that we align the services with the folks who actually want it. So that was one consideration. Well, what should we do? Maybe we should throw up a reminder message. We did that, it didn't really help at all. Folks were still forgetting to hit the in-transit button, which ultimately meant you're going to text the customer probably from the doorstep of their house. So, because you'll forget to do it and you do it too late, and then you got a different problem because instead of not sending a text at the right time, I've now done that, plus I probably confused the customer. I just walked them around their car, we took care of them, we were really nice, they went inside and they got a text message. So that's one of the things that we realized we needed to actually lock it down. So we made it a required step. A couple of the things, you can see also the travel estimate up there. We added that in pretty quickly. We realized, why are we making our techs figure out how long it's going to take them from here to there when we have their GPS, we know where they're going, we can do a calculation. So now we do that. And recently we've included live traffic as part of that calculation. So that helps to make the accuracy improved. And you also see we have a ton more values in the travel time. We're now pegging the travel time to whatever the estimate is. So it's no extra steps for the technician to have to pick through anything like that. They have the option if they need to. If they need to go pick up another part, or if they need to go swing through Wendy's on the way to that job and they know it's going to take more than what we're estimating, because we don't know that they're going to Wendy's, they can do that. They can adjust it out and make sure that they get an ETA range that they can commit to. So for the ones that are actually executing this correctly, we're on time about 80% of the time, and we're early about 12% of the time. So we've had pretty good success with that. It's just a matter of getting in the habit of doing it frequently. Okay, so here's what the customers saw. On the left, you'll see the text that went out in October of 2013. It says your Safelite technician's on the way, estimates arrive between, and then we pop in a dynamic field, which is that ETA range. And the other dynamic field is the phone number. That sends them to a local dispatcher. Okay? One of the things here, we included the word Safelite right at the beginning on purpose, so that if you had preview set for your phone on inbound texts, you would always see the word Safelite's included. So they're probably not going to recognize the short code that comes down, but they'll at least see the word Safelite. They'll know what they're looking at that point. And about a year later, we made a real quick, slight change and included the tech's first name. So if you think the tech has already sent them a profile email with their picture and their name and called them, so that part is just kind of completing the cycle there, and it's a little bit of a nice touch to include the name. It's a little bit more personal. There's also the cases where about 4% of the time, between 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. when the tech contacted the customer and when they actually showed up on site, the routes changed and a different technician was assigned. And that freaks people out. So if I was expecting Jim to show up and then it's Mike and they look nothing alike, we've had customers really get bothered by that. So at least in this case, Mike is the one who's going to be on site. That's what's going to show up in the text. It gives them a little bit more of a warning that something is a little different. So if they needed to call in and ask about that, they could do that. All right? So in measuring success, how do we do it? This is kind of from most basic, does this thing even work, down to a little bit more refined and matured level of measuring success, saying our customers really appreciate it. So did it work? Well, yes, it worked. So this is from December of last year. We were kicking out about 500 a day to customers at that point. And in late January, we ramped up to basically the whole country, all mobile jobs. We had a bad weekend in February, And I will point out to all the Twilio folks, this is our fault, not yours. All good. I kind of explain that a little bit later too. But these things happen. But ultimately, it definitely was viable and it definitely worked. Next, we needed to verify that this was actually something that folks wanted. Made sense to us to kind of continue to move on. We talked to focus groups, they said so, but in practice, were people actually asking for it? And did that change? When we measure our opt-in rates. So the overall opt-in rate is about 42%. I have a couple other cuts here, but this is something that we expect, just based on behavior in this day and age, to continue to increase. OK, so people want it. We got it. It's working. Can we execute it? And can we execute it accurately? These next steps. And the blue line is the one that really should be pretty damn near 100%. This is just a matter of hitting the button every time. OK, and this is hitting in transit. So that affects our accuracy, and they'll pretty much go hand in hand. What I like about this, though, while it's a little embarrassing to show, is that it's getting better. And this is, in some cases, years and years and years of behavior. And we've been on this mobile application for almost 10 years, if you can believe that. So just kind of this project and this program is helping to adjust our technicians' mindsets in some ways to thinking about being on time and sending customers the messages that they're asking for in the way that they're asking for. And we really kind of like to see how that's working out. Finally, customer sentiment. We do measure our customer sentiment with text analytics on the communication piece as a whole, and on the word text specifically. It's definitely spiked the number of responses since going live essentially like 3 months ago with the rest of the country. And I wanted to point out one verbatim. This is like the movie posters that say best movie of the year because, of course, you're going to cherry pick the right ones. But I like what they said here, where they said, even with an 8 to 12 window, the call and the text allowed me to go and do other stuff. So people are getting other stuff done. That's what I appreciate about the program, and I think it's a lot of what our customers are saying. And then bonus level. We were awarded the Customer Experience Professionals Association CX Innovation Award last year, so we're proud of that. Other operational wins. So some other things that we got out of this that maybe we weren't expecting. Safer driving practices. Our technicians now are not going to be tempted to call or text that customer that they're driving to because the text was already sent off the app, kind of through the background. And our mobile application already is locked down whenever the smartphone is moving. We can't lock down the text or the phone features. That's just native on the device. But anything that can contribute to safer driving is something that we're going to appreciate. Average travel time data. So since setting the in-transit milestone and setting the arrived milestone is so important now, and it's being drilled into everybody's heads, we now have data that we can use to say, oh, look at this market's average travel time. Or maybe if I'm in that market and I'm a manager, look at the average travel time for this guy versus this guy. This makes no sense. Someone's either finding a shortcut or always taking the long way home or something like that. So this is kind of a bonus. And then platform for further innovation. The things that we have now on the plate, we've already done all the plumbing. We've got it ready to go. And obviously with Twilio expanding their offerings, it's pretty exciting to think about the things that we can offer now going forward. We learned about messaging and a messaging project, really. For us, the reporting had to be at least weekly. We started off, I was creating these like artesian reports that took hours and hours to build, and I didn't want to do them more than every 3 or 4 weeks, so I didn't. And the field, that didn't work. The field needed reports at least weekly, if not daily. And we're looking actually to figure out how we can get this on the text phones and have them see their performance all the time without even needing management oversight or that sort of, or kind of coaching. Health monitors is another thing. I mean, it kind of just makes sense that Oh, of course, hey, monitor your stuff. Good idea, Nate. Well, we were excited about getting this thing going, and sometimes things get left behind. And so to me, reporting and monitoring actually are two topics that get left behind. But that day in February when things went south, our field told us about it, and that's embarrassing as an IT group. Whenever it gets all the way out, and then we still don't catch it when it's in prod, that sucks. So you can see there's a lot of handoffs, and then there's a lot of things to kind of take care of and get our arms around. But we want to know when things are sick, and we want to be able to predict maybe when things are happening that we don't like. Okay? From customers, the thing I would really like to point out here is this ability to receive text at work. We're seeing a lot of that in our survey results. So where, customers appreciate the fact that the time window is kind of unlocked and they can go about their lives. For the folks who are at work, they actually like not having to answer a call and getting the information in a real kind of discreet way where I can be in a conference call or I can be doing work or having a conversation with somebody and get what I need out of this kind of communication. And from text, again, the more decision making that we built in and the more kind of intelligence that we provided them, we got it down to one tap, basically. So the screen that comes up, and when I finish job 3, job 4 in transit screen comes up, I can, with one tap, get right to executing that trigger, and that was important. Okay, so to wrap it up, the 3 things that the customer care about in practice kind of happen in a way, in a chronological order. So the first conversation that the tech has with the customer is important to build a little bit of rapport, but being on time really sets the course for our techs and our customers to continue to have that great relationship. Everyone's in a good mood, when we're on site, and that lets our techs just focus and make sure they're going to do quality work. So with that, also like to wrap up, biological mother did reply to me, and so far we've only communicated through text, and now she follows me on Twitter, which, I don't know, that's a little weird. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Beckman Nate. I changed this. It's not what's in the book. Sorry, Twilio, I screwed that up. But I'll warn you, I'm a big soccer fanatic, so a lot of what I post is about Columbus Crew SC. But you can find me on LinkedIn or email me or find me afterwards. And I have 2 of our star technicians from the San Francisco market here with me. So if you'd like to ask them, hear their war stories or anything about the app or things like that, we'll be available afterwards to answer any questions. And obviously, I can take questions right now. Thanks. Or not. You want me to sing the jingle again? Okay.
What are the main usability challenges with text as far as kind of getting into this process?
I can answer that. Do you guys want to talk about any usability problems that you experience with it, or?
I think the user interface is actually very, very simple. It's a matter of just clicking a button, and that button automatically. It's just a matter of clicking a button, and that button automatically sends a text message to our customer. Alerting them and notifying them that our text can be there within a certain time frame. That allows the customer to go ahead and schedule up their day and get in preparation so when our technician arrives on site, they can go ahead and complete the job for the customer.
So it wasn't disruptive to your workflow or anything?
No, it's a new learning curve for our technicians because it's an additional step in order to delight our customers and take care of them. So it's just an additional step. Just like any technology, if you have a laptop and you add additional interface, and instead of hitting the F8 key, now you're hitting the F9 key. It's just one extra step, But that extra step is so critical to the business in terms of taking care of our customers.
That actually reminded me of something else too. So in our iterations, I think we're probably on. If you counted all the changes, we're probably on the 10th or 11th version of this. Right here, save text and nav. That means save text and navigate. we had our techs ask us, after I set the in transit, I have to hit back, I have to hit back again, and then I go to the map, and then I go to in transit, or I go to navigate, and they use it as a GPS navigation system. He's like, can you shortcut that somehow? So, sure, we can put that button right on the same screen, so it's basically like, that's the way you want to do it. If those two buttons both trigger the text message, the green ones do, but save text and nav triggers the text message, and it'll go ahead and kick on that navigation and send you to this job. And then the one above it here, this is also a map icon, and that lets them check out the map ahead of time. So while our travel estimate is as good as we can make it right now, some guys still want to take a peek at the map and kind of verify it themselves. Because if they don't believe in this ETA range, they need to change it. They need to come up here, tap the down arrow, and pick a time that's going to give them an ETA range that they can commit to in the customer, for the customer. So that's another one that we added in just to try to make this a smooth flow. So there were a couple bumps, but I think we've addressed a good amount of the issues. Other questions? Yeah.
So you said you had a 62% opt-in rate from your customers, right?
42, 60. The 62 number was the Safelite.com. So folks who log into Safelite.com can opt in themselves when they're completing their own order, instead of if they would to call the contact center.
Can you just talk about some of the legality that you guys had?
Yeah.
I imagine that was a big part of this of getting.
It's serious stuff. So there is a very litigious environment right now around sending texts in mass to folks in general. But it really applies to marketing. We were kind of extra careful about it, and we said we are going to make sure that we don't text anyone who doesn't verbally opt in or physically click something for us. So in addition to that, there's a text message that you receive now when you sign up for text messages, when you sign up for On My Way, you get a ping immediately that says, thank you for signing up for Safelite text messages. Stop this campaign, help for more info. And those stop and help keywords are understood in the legal community as a way that we've always given the customers a way to opt out. Yeah?
I'm just curious whether you looked at the dispatcher service from Google Maps.
The dispatcher service from Google Maps. We did not. So my team actually also supports the dispatching tool, which was another homegrown application. So we really didn't investigate that as part of this program. Yeah? Yeah.
What made you guys decide to use opt-in rather than an opt-out option? Because they've done research that shows in countries where you have to opt out of doing like an organ donor situation, people tend to be organ donors more so when
They tend to be what?
they tend to be organ donors if they have to opt out or opting in. It's like
Yeah.
doing that automatically changes how they
Right. Legality. We didn't want to go the road of expecting the customer to notice that they were opted in for something and then unexpectedly get a text message. So this way, if it's a conversation, it did add what we estimated to be 11 seconds to every call in our contact center, and that was serious business. That was why we were in pilot from October of 2013 up through really July of 2014. At that point, we rolled it out to every market, but in a very small way. And we did that because we were concerned about 11 seconds times all these calls that are going to have that prompt on them, because we have a lot of people in our call center and a lot of phone calls, and it's a lot of money. It's extra bodies, It's extra labor hours. But we felt like it was something that we believed in, and that the customer sentiment was really telling us that we needed to do. Yeah.
Was email a potential backup plan or receiving the messages?
Emailing customers?
I mean, email, customer can opt in as getting from email rather than text. Is that an option?
Well, so any customer that gives us an email address, which is 85 to 90% of our customers, they automatically get all the emails. And if you remember this slide where I have all the different interaction points, all of these happen automatically. They don't have to ask for these, and we don't have to get their permission for them. And I guess I'll say, if I didn't opt in for on my way text, now we send an email at the point of saying in transit, we send an email to those customers telling them that this specific technician is on the way. So it's kind of like an on the way email for folks who didn't opt in.
Great.
Yeah,
Have you looked at
I think we got one more.
picture to MMS?
What was that?
Have you looked at sending the picture of the tech to MMS as well?
We're actually doing that in about 4 weeks. So, yep. So the on my way text will include the picture of the technician now at that final step, starting in June. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nate.